Hi, I'm Peter Charles of Hooked for Life Fly Fishing, and today in this vlog, let's talk about what fish see. Now, I have a book here by Colin Kageyama. It's called What Fish See. Understanding Optics and Color Shifts for Designing Lures and Flies. He's an optometrist and an angler. So he's put those interests together to come up with quite a very interesting book, because what fish see in the water is different from what we see in the air. Their eyes are attuned to the colors and spectrum of light that penetrates the water they live in. It's no point them having sensitivity in their eyes for light that doesn't get to them. So they have a more limited range of color sensitivity based on what they're going to be able to see, and that affects the choice of the colors for our lures and our flies. So for example, if I took this fly box into Lake Erie, I put on a scuba tank and took it down 20 or 30 feet, what's going to show up? Well, white will, for example. Will blue and red show up? No, I go to black. What will show up is yellow and green. So if I've got a yellow fly in here, it'll really pop. So this one here, the Skagit Special, is yellow and orange. That yellow will really pop, but the orange not so much. The orange is going to get a little muddy. The red's just totally, if there's any red on it, it's got a red head. That's gone black. But I've got green here. I've got a green fly down here. That green will glow. These yellow flies, that'll glow. So if I've got a fly with yellow and red on it, and I use it 30 feet down on the end of a sinking line, the yellow will show, but the red will go into black. And that's true for our lures too. I mean, that lure here has green and red on it. It's a saltwater lure. It's meant for use for striped bass, and it doesn't run very deep. But that red, deep down, is going to go to black. The green will continue to show in ocean water. Green and blue show up well in ocean water when you get down, but not the red. But in muddy water or brown tannin stained water, it's the red and oranges that show up, because red and orange is the wavelengths of light that penetrate brown water. So let's recap that. In the ocean is blue and green. In green water, it's green and yellow. And in muddy or brown water, it's red and orange. So when you're dealing with these watercolor conditions, those are the kinds of lure or fly colors you want to be concentrating on, because those are going to be the colors that are most visible and what the fish will have the most sensitivity to when they're operating in those conditions. So for example, when steelhead migrate from the ocean into a river, their eyes are blue sensitive as they're coming in from the ocean, because that makes sense, because blue penetrates quite well in ocean water. As soon as they get into fresh water and they're encountering green water, their color sensitivity in their eyes shift to green. They lose the blue and they gain green. And with that added green sensitivity, it makes sense to fish lures that will appeal to them in fresh water. So using blue, for example, when they're fresh out of the ocean makes sense. But using blue when they've penetrated much further inland and their eyes have shifted, well, that probably ends up looking gray or black to them at that point. So it makes less sense to have blue on a fly, 50 miles inland, for example, for steelhead. So when we're looking at picking lures or flies, we're looking at flying material on a wall at a shop, or we're looking at a rack full of lures, and we go, oh geez, that looks good, that looks good, I'll take some of that. And we're not thinking about the water we're going to be using it in and what the fish are actually going to be able to see at the depths we're going to be using it. Now I know what some of you are saying. They're saying, well, I don't use my flies or my lures very deep. I'm just a foot or two down. Does it matter? Well, first off, it depends on water clarity. If it's brown, dirty water, you might only have 2 foot or 3 foot of visibility to begin with. So you don't have to get down 6 inches to a foot, and you've got major color shifts. Even in clear water, you're getting color shifts at relatively shallow depths. But what's more important is you've got relatively clear water, and the fish can see your fly or lure from 15 feet away. It's looking through 15 feet of water. So, it's not going to be able to see the colors that it will at 15 feet that it'll see at 1 foot. There will be a color shift as the fish approaches the lure. But from far away, that lure, if it's predominantly red and you're operating it in green water, well, that lure is going to look black from 15 feet away, and it only will start to appear to be red when the fish gets close to it. So you have to ask yourself, what effect does that have on the fish when it starts looking at a black lure and gets to it and it's red? You know, does that have any impact on whether the fish will take the lure or not? Will it be turned off by that color shift? We have no idea, but it might explain why you get follows instead of hits. That changing in color as the fish gets closer may be turning it off. So keep those things in mind, that you should be matching your colors of your flies or your lures to the water conditions you're facing, because color, blue and green colors, wavelengths of light penetrate very well in salt water. Green and yellow penetrate well. In brown, tannin, or muddy water, it's brown and orange that penetrate very well. So those are the colors we should be using if we want to create attractor patterns that fish can see clearly. The last thing I want to talk about is fluorescence, because that's not often well understood as well. Fluorescence is the ability for an object to reflect more than just its color. So if it's yellow, for example, it reflects just yellow light and absorbs all the other colors. If it's fluorescent yellow, it's reflecting yellow, but it's also reflecting green, blue, and violet as yellow. So all the shorter wavelengths get converted to yellow in a fluorescent object and get reflected back as yellow. So that's why they look so hot, so bright, especially on an overcast day. So when you're looking at fluorescent colors, keep in mind that they are converting those shorter wavelengths to the color of the object. So fluorescent orange converts yellow, green, blue, and violet to orange and reflects it back as orange. So it will really pop, really glow on an overcast day. So if we are out in muddy water, overcast day, and we're using fluorescent orange, that thing is just like this hot glowing thing going through the water. So there's a lot going on with colors and water conditions and what the fish are able to see that affects how well our lures work. As an example of how I move from one condition to the next, at this time of year, my river is running predominantly brown. I'm using lots of orange, and fish hit it quite well. But when we get into November, December, the river sort of shifts more to green, and I'm looking at more chartreuse as a color that's going to work for me. Right now, I won't bother using chartreuse at all. I'm using reds and oranges, and I'll shift to the chartreuse and the greens and the yellows, as the season progresses and that water goes from brown to green. So, those are the kinds of awareness I have about the colors, my color choices of my flies. And you can make your own determination for this. Just look at the water conditions, look at the light, because on a sunny day, you've got a broad, an even spectrum of frequencies, but on an overcast day, it shifts to predominantly blue. So, that affects your color choices as well. So keep that in mind, and keep this book in mind too if you're interested in this subject. That we should really be aware of the light that penetrates the water and what the fish are able to see when we're making our choices for either fly tying material or the lures we're buying. So give that some thought, and it may improve your fishing. Cheers.